Cursor just launched their new AI model, and it is so insanely fast that it has completely changed the way I think about coding. I mean, it can literally read your code base in 30 seconds, which made me realize this is how you're supposed to use AI to actually code. So today I'm going to show you the exact two model system I use with Composer 1 that lets me build full stack apps 10 times faster. And I'll explain exactly why just using one AI model to code isn't that good anymore. And finally, we'll put it to the test with a real build so you can see the exact workflow step by step with a working backend, front end, and web app. And hopefully by then you'll understand what I mean when I say that this workflow is just so much better. So why is it important to pair a sort of fast model like Composer 1 with a slower, slightly smarter model like GPT-5 or Codex? So I have a sample project here. And what you'll notice if you use any sort of coding tool, whether it's Claude Code, whether it's GPT-5 Codex, whether it's Cursor, is the first sort of anywhere between 30 seconds to 2 to 3 minutes if you're using Codex, what it's doing is it's actually going and grabbing all the relevant context. So here I have a sample project open. And what I'm going to go and I'm going to ask both. I'm going to speed this up after. I'm going to go ask both. I'm going to ask Claude Code and I'm going to ask Codex to sort of read through the code, understand it, and create me a plan on what it's going to do. I'll just run you through it and you'll see just how slow it is. Okay, and I'll give the same prompt to all of them. Go through the code base and help me make a plan to create a full stack backend and front end clone of Airbnb, DB, etc. So send that off to Codex using GPT-5 High, and then we'll go here and we'll send that off to Claude Code. And so I'm going to speed this part up, but you'll see how slow it is. So we'll go yes, don't ask again. So we'll get Codex, not too bad. And then we also got Claude still chugging along. Surprisingly, GPT-5 High is actually faster in this scenario. Sometimes I've noticed it when it's going like, it'll go for 10 minutes just to do a simple task. Here, it's Claude Code that's having a rough time. But you'll start to notice it just takes a long time to go and do this. Okay, now we got our plan. As you saw, it took a very, very long time. Two problems with this. The first problem is I'm waiting around. Let's say I want to make edits. Let's say it doesn't include something. The back and forth that I have with Claude or GPT-5 High or whatever is a lot slower. And that's the first area where I've noticed with this new workflow, I've seen tremendous speed gains. A lot of the times I'm waiting, I'm just kind of like, okay. And then half the time I don't even read what it says because it took so long. Whereas with Composer 1, it completely changes it. So now you saw how slow this is. So now let's see exactly how fast Composer 1 is. So okay, I'm going to take the exact same prompt. I'm going to give it the same super basic stuff. I'm going to go here. So I'm going to just include my prompt file here and we'll go submit. So let's open this up and we'll go submit. And I don't even need to speed this part up because you'll see how many files it reads, how many different areas. Already it created the first plan. Now maybe I'm not happy with it, so we'll wait. Let's see what it says with the plan. Okay, boom, done. And this is another pattern that I've been doing a lot recently with Composer 1 is using this plan.md file. It does two things. One, obviously, it lets you read over and just see exactly what the agent is going to do. But the other thing is it actually lets the agent do a lot more for a lot longer without making as many mistakes. I notice that sometimes if I just vibe code and say, okay, do this thing for me, especially if it's like multi features, like back end, front end, it's very complex. If I don't have a plan, it completely messes it up. So let's read through here. Okay, this had 511 lines of code. It looks pretty good. I like this. Let's see here, property types. I'm not going to say too much, but let's just say, for example, right? I was like, okay, can you read a few more files just to be certain? And again, this is where the power comes in. Imagine you're working on a very big code base or you're vibe coding like a very difficult project. You'll start to notice at one point the agent just forgets to do what it's doing. It doesn't know where the files are. This is a pretty slim project. I just scaffolded it up. It's one of my web app starter templates, but you'll start to see a lot of sort of benefit when you have a big code base and you'll see the model needs to read a bunch of context as possible. So here we have Composer 1 creating the plan, whereas on the other end we have Claude Code. Now, I could ask Claude Code to go ahead and implement this. I'm not going to yet. I'm going to kind of go into the second part of the workflow which is actually just letting Composer 1 do the work. And so now before we get Composer 1 and Claude Code to start building or GPT-5, I kind of want to just explain a little bit further why this is so much more powerful than just sitting there and just praying that Claude or GPT-5 nails it. So what you'll see is a lot of models, they have this thing called context window, and that's just how much content it can remember and store. And so as your project grows, right, let's just say we have a bunch of files, code, right? You have a bunch of code. You're gonna have so much more code as your project grows, unless you're building a to-do app, is that the models are not going to be able to fit all of this into its context window. At some point, what it's going to have to do is it's going to have to go and fetch information, right? So if we just say, this is our code here, right? This is all of your code, some garbage, some spaghetti. And so what the model is going to have to do is it's going to have to go and it's going to have to search. Cursor has a couple of things. One of the common techniques is literally for the model to sort of search the code base with a grep, which is like, I'm going to search for the file name, I'm going to search for the file structure, and then get the code in that file. What Cursor has been doing is a semantic search. But the point is, at some point, as your project goes, you're going to have to be grabbing code for the model. Now, you can do that by adding it in Cursor, by pulling in the context, but that's a lot of work. I'm a lazy vibe coder, you're a lazy vibe coder, no one wants to do that, right? And so what you could do is get the model to do it. Okay, go search, but here, if let's just say, for example, in like that you saw, this takes 1 second. It's actually a lot longer than that. It's probably like 1.5 seconds, right? 1.5 seconds per tool call here to search here. Claude is probably the same, let's just say. And from what you see, Composer 1, because it's so fast, it's at, let's call it 0.2. What it can do is it can make a lot more tool calls in the same amount of time. And this is really beneficial because as you start vibe coding, as the context session grows and grows, the model kind of forgets what it did earlier on, kind of forgets what the files are. And so when you're there pairing with it, it really does let you sort of reinvigorate or sort of re-grab the context that it needs way quicker. Instead of you having to sit there, wait for Claude, and sort of have this very slow back and forth, you can just hammer Composer 1 and just say, like, grab me this file, get me this information, and just keep feeding it to Claude. The way that I like to think about it, right, is you have your two little agents. You have fast model, and this can be any model. I've just been using Composer 1, but there's a lot of other ones available that you can use. There's Kimi K2, which is the Chinese model. But the whole point is that this fast model is sort of like your little monkey that you just have run around getting all of the stuff that you need for your smarter model. In coding, this becomes very powerful because, like I said, coding, there's a lot of context. But you could apply this concept to any area. And so here, this will go and grab the code, and then it will feed the context here. So what we're doing is right now, this is us. We are here, us giving to smart model. And this is what I've been doing because it is so much better than just sitting there waiting like 10, 15 minutes, going back. And again, for simple things, it works fine. But the second you start to do anything complicated is where I've personally found very little success. So let's go back into the real example of building the Airbnb clone. Okay, so the first thing, I have this web app starter template. It's already pre-set up with like a database, so we don't have to worry about that. A couple things you'll notice right off the bat is that this web app starter template has this code. And I think the plan that it generated didn't necessarily cover that. It talked about sort of the properties and the routes and all that kind of stuff. But for the sake of this demo and just the sake of this example, I want to make it a little bit shorter. And you can use voice for this part. So if you have a tool that lets you voice record, it's a lot faster. So something like this. Okay, so now what we want to do is update the plan. Let's cut back on a lot of the routes and the images. I think we're doing too much there. And let's set up two things. So here, if you look on the code base, look up the marketing section. It's the main/marketing. Let's completely revamp that part to be the actual sort of Airbnb look that we want. And then we'll go on into the admin page, which is behind all the login information in the code base. And that's where we can start adding information. So can we please update the plan to justify that, to show that? Now, you can imagine having multiple turns and conversations. And look, it's going to read all the files. It's going to explore the code base. This would have taken way longer if I was just sitting here with Codex and just praying that it updated the right thing. Okay, cool. Got the new marketing plan, so we'll just go ahead and keep. This looks good to me, but I'm gonna ask it to like, okay, so update the implementation order. Let's just get the front end to look really nice first. Let's not worry about connecting to the back end just yet. Let's just get that like main homepage Airbnb experience. This time, because I'm very confident in our plan, I actually think Composer 1 will do a pretty good job of making the front end. So we'll let it go and hope that it's able to get our Airbnb clone. So I'm back. It's still implementing. It's gonna run the formatter. Yep, I'm happy with this. Great. All right. I don't know about you guys, but this looks pretty crazy. This might be the best looking Airbnb clone I have seen in a while, and it's still chugging along. So one thing you'll notice with this model, two things. It's actually pretty good at front end if you sort of outline exactly what you want, Two, it just goes bazooka on like editing the code. Sometimes I kind of just have to stop it because I'm like, you're doing too much. And I'll say, update the plan with what you've done looks good. So I'm happy. This looks good. Now what we want to do is just get the backend working. Again, just asking it to update the plan. And so here I'm reaching sort of 50% context. I like to cut it around here. So that's actually why I'm asking it to update the plan. I'm going to create a new chat and we're going to start fresh from there. So keep all. All right, so now we're going to move to the back end. I just quickly set up the database. So here you can see I just added my user to this. Part of this workflow doesn't always mean you default directly to Claude Code. There's a lot of times I'm using Composer 1 and it just can't figure it out. And I'll kind of go to Claude Code. Or if I'm working on a very sort of heavy backend orientated task that maybe only needs a couple of changes, but they're really difficult and it's hard to get right, I'll actually just go to GPT-5 Codex. But today, where we're at right now in the sort of project, I really think that Composer can figure it out. I started a new chat, and what I'm going to say is I'm going to be like, just look at the plan, go grab all the files and just make sure you understand what you're doing, and then start implementing the backend. So I'll actually literally just say that here. Okay, so we're continuing a chat from a previous. I know the other thing is Cursor does have a plan mode. Personally, I didn't really like it that much. I like the flexibility of having this plan here. And because it's just so fast, it's easier to switch between instances of something. I can always go here to Claude Code and just kind of add, reference plan and go to GPT-5 Codex. So it just gives me a bit more flexibility as opposed to using the built-in plan from Cursor. So we'll go ahead, we'll send this and see how it goes. I said, created a lot of to-dos, and you'll just see this model just like chugs along. And I see the most success when you have really good cursor rules, you have a really good project setup, this thing can just go at it. Like the amount of code that this thing is writing is ungodly. Like I can't even fathom how long it would take me to do this. It's just like I can't even put it into words, right? And again, the value comes when you're working on bigger projects. The bigger the project, the more the model has to sort of figure out where the files are, and the better it is that you have the sort of faster one, grabbing all the relevant context, and then giving that and implementing into the smarter one. In this case, I'm confident that we can kind of do it just with Composer, but generally my workflow is a lot of the times go from there, give it to GPT-5 Codex, depending on the task, or Claude Code. Okay, so here we have something that looks not too bad. This is sort of the properties page. Only issue, it has a little double sidebar. So we'll just say that you have a double sidebar, fix it. So there's some updates happening to the database. Go good. Okay, this looks great. Let's just grab this. Let's do push. It's gonna update the database. We'll copy this again. I don't know what's happening. Like, can you? We'll go sure. Looks good to me. Looks good to me. We'll go like, push the database. Hopefully this works. Yeah, running into issues. Just let it chug along. Great. We got our properties. We got our chats. Looks good. I got my little property here. And let's just go ahead and save it like this. Okay, so there we have the property in the database, but for some reason it's returning an error. I see the property in the database. I'm just not sure why it's not appearing here when I try to get the property. Okay, so we got something that's like, is it the best? No. I can delete this. Let's go okay. Now all that's left is to go to here. Okay, and there we go. I am honestly pretty happy with this considering we just sat here and we really didn't do much. I think what's most amazing is how well this looks. I mean, obviously there's a lot to add to an Airbnb clone, but pretty good. And again, this is funny because if you're doing like a maybe more complex project or sort of you had a little bit more time, you would probably pass a lot of this context to Claude. And a lot of what I would do is I would just copy what I have here and just throw it into Claude Code. And as you saw, it's starting to make a little bit of a mistake here and there. But the pattern is the same. You kind of try to do, I'd say like 70% of the work with the fast model, get all of the sort of things ready, all the files, all of the content and context it needs, then throw that into the smarter model if you think it can do it. So here, for example, is the right scenario where I would be like, okay, I don't know if it can do any more. I'll ask it to summarize, and then I'm going to pass it over to Claude to kind of clean it up and fix it. And that's all. I hope you enjoyed that video that explains sort of the workflow. I've been using it. It's been tremendously valuable, whether I'm vibe coding, whether I'm doing it with like production code. It's just really, I went from not using Cursor anymore to using it like probably 10 times more than I used to. If you like this, let me know. I'll try to make more videos like this that talk about other workflows I have because I have like a bunch, whether it's coding, whether it's image gen. Just let me know. And if you like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.